Live stream.
We are live streaming, everyone. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. And we have an amazing guest today. So get ready for a powerful download. If you're not driving and if you're kind of relaxed and sitting down, you might even want to grab a pen and paper and just kind of jot some notes down. But I'd like to introduce our guest today. Dr. Todd Ovokaitys. He was first in his class in high school, which does not surprise me, and also top of his class at Northwestern University with the highest possible grade point average. After 2 years, he was accepted into an accelerated undergraduate and medical training program at none other than Johns Hopkins University and Medical School. He then completed specialty training in internal medicine and subspecialty training and pulmonary and critical care medicine at Georgetown University Hospital. He was assessed by a faculty there, faculty committee, as the best of all the residents across the board. Dr. Todd was inspired to move to California to understand energy medicine. And shortly after that journey began, he had a vision of communicating with the pure consciousness of DNA. So this has resulted in his co-inventing a laser-based interdimensional platform, which has numerous United States and international patents granted in the areas of nutraceuticals, of agriculture, including cannabis, and especially stem cell biology. He also pursues and provides training in the areas of psycho-emotional medicine, getting at the core root of any condition, physical or psychiatric, that can offer lasting relief. Now, these discoveries have the potential to be a part of why or what may revolutionize and personalize the practice of medicine, which is why I'm super excited to have Dr. Todd on today. And by the way, if that's not enough, Dr. Todd is also the composer and at times co-conductor of the Lumerian choirs that create patterns of tones, which we will discuss later, and information that can accelerate expansion of consciousness. So, without further ado, let's welcome this superhuman and my new friend to today's podcast of Beyond the Current Situation. Welcome, Dr. Todd. Thank you for
Well,
being here.
sure. A great pleasure being on with you today. Look forward to seeing where this organic discussion goes.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that maybe are new to Beyond the Current Situation, basically it is always an organic conversation. And so, look, there's nothing small about your work, but I would like to tease out the research and works that you have been doing recently as it relates to quantum research and stem cells. First, I guess I should ask you, can you explain to our listeners today what exactly is quantum? We have
Well,
time. We have time.
quantum is one of those words like nano that becomes used for branding for various stuff. And often the way the word is used has nothing to do with its technical meaning. So quantum, I think in its popular usage, suggests something that's very fancy advanced physics like Einstein and a whole host of physicist names that people might recognize. And it's esoteric and it's a bit spooky, and like we've created modern technology with it. The actual meaning of quantum goes back to Einstein's and the early physicists' work, like Rutherford, for example, or the Bohr model of the atom. And quantum literally refers to energy being quantized in the differential between the energy states of electrons going around atoms. So if you dig back into high school chemistry, there is a particular structure to an atom that has a core nucleus and has different shells of electrons around it. And the outermost electrons are the ones that can absorb and release energy. And if an electron absorbs a photon, it goes to a higher energy state. And that difference in energy is actually very specific. It is quantized. And when models of atoms are created, they define that particular electrons, if they absorb energy, or particularly if they release energy, it's a very specific differential of energy states. So it hops from one energy level to another, and that difference is very specific, or it's quantized. So fundamentally, quantum in its true meaning refers to the energy differentials between various activated versus ground state levels of energy of electrons.
Interesting. So, what are stem cells? Hey, there's a lot of people out there that really don't know, or they have a different perspective, or what have you.
That's an excellent question. I believe there is a lot of excitement as well as confusion around the term stem cells.
Agreed.
And the biggest issue is that when people hear the word stem cells, there's a tendency to think it's just one thing. And it turns out there are many different types of stem cells in the body. And in terms of the use of stem cells, there are many different ways they're used in many different sources. The basic meaning of a stem cell is that it's a type of cell that has a pool of cells that can do one of two things. They divide, they expand themselves, they maintain their population, and they either come out of that pool of reserve cells and replace something. So stem cells can replace a liver cell or a brain cell or a skin cell or a heart cell or any other type of cell in the body. And as this pool maintains itself, as cells divide, they either literally replace a cell that's been damaged or injured or gets too old to be used, or they maintain themselves in the reserve pool. And the confusion is that there is a whole hierarchy of stem cells, from the most powerful that can become any type of cell in the body to those that are very specific, that could say just become a heart cell or just become a brain cell. And depending upon where the stem cells are in this very large menu of sources and functions of stem cells, depending upon the very specific type of stem cell that's used and how it's delivered, it may have various benefits to the person receiving them.
Mm. It's just hearing that. I can't imagine it not being so inspiring to people when it comes to all of the findings and the discoveries and the work, right, with stem cell. How important is your research and discoveries in stem cells for the expansion of humanity's health and life longevity?
Well, let me extend the discussion of types of stem cells, just
Great.
because it's very relevant to the pioneering work that we're doing
Mhm.
and how relevant it is to what I would call the full human potential.
Perfect.
So we're really at what I will call um, ground zero of what could be a huge movement in medicine, health, and wellness that, among other things, literally could transform the human lifespan, and not just how long we live, but we can live much longer in very youthful bodies. The most powerful stem cells, and there's been a lot of controversy about them, are called embryonic stem cells. And when a fertilization event occurs and this very early first cell starts dividing, the most primordial state, when it's a very small collection of cells, is the source of embryonic stem cells. And each of these cells is so powerful, they can create a whole new person.
Wow. Oh, goodness. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So because they create a whole new person, it's called totipotent, or literally totally potent. It can make a whole body, a whole new human. So say at a 32 cell stage, if those cells were divided, each of those could become a whole new different person. Now, part of the reason that these cells are controversial is that the source of embryonic stem cells has literally been embryos,
Mhm.
mostly from in vitro fertilization work. And often, for example, the way IVF is done, there is a stimulus given so that multiple eggs are released and many embryos may be formed. And say if one of those is used or two of those are used and it creates a successful birth outcome, there may be several that are left over that the family never wants.
Yes, yeah, I know quite a few people that went through that experience, and twins, quadruplets. I know someone that had 5 babies. God
That's,
bless. And
that's a
and
lot of
I
it.
this it's a lot of babies. This is, I guess, a great explanation as to why.
Right.
Mhm,
Now, it gets to the heart of the ethical controversy
mhm.
because each of those embryos could become a new baby or person. Yet, if the source of those embryos, if they decide they're really just not going to use them, then the question is what to do with them. And if the cells were really going to be useful to reduce someone's suffering or to save a life, you might argue, well, maybe you should use them, but you really get into this controversy. Well, it could have been a person, and well, yet you could save a life. And often what happens is they go past the use by date and they're simply incinerated.
Mhm.
So getting caught in the ethical controversy, they wind up typically just getting destroyed. Now, if the only issue were the ethical one, there might be a greater movement to use them. The other challenge is, unlike almost all the other stem cells, they're prone to serious complications. The specific complication that they're prone to is something called teratoma formation. So because these cells are so powerful, they tend to proliferate and they may form these giant tumors in the body, literally like even as big as an orange or an apple or even a cantaloupe. That is this very weird combination of different types of cells in the body.
Hmm.
So it literally can be a giant hairball with teeth and skin and nails and muscle and cartilage, this weird, funny mass of benign cells in a very disorganized way. So this isn't life-threatening. It's a benign tumor, but who really wants a giant cantaloupe-sized hairball in their stomach?
Right. Yeah.
So that is the main reason that there's been reservation appropriately about using true embryonic stem cells.
Mm.
Now, just past embryonic, you get into a type of cell called pluripotent, and pluri means many.
Mhm. Yes.
And pluripotent stem cells can become any of what are called the three germ layers of the body. So in embryogenesis, you first get a little ball of cells that are undifferentiated, but quite shortly after that, there begins a process where cells start to become differentiated as just being a homogeneous little ball. And the first thing that happens is the differentiation into three different germ layers, and each of those germ layers tends to form different things. There's the ectoderm, which tends to form skin and brain and spinal cord. There's the mesoderm, which forms muscle and bone and cartilage and ligaments. And then there's endoderm, which forms things like the digestive tract. So you have the three germ layers, and each of those germ layers can create different types of cells that are specific to that germ layer. And a pluripotent stem cell is a cell that is able to differentiate along any of those three germ layers, or literally can become any of the types of cells in the body. And then you have,
Interesting.
right,
Interesting.
right. And then you have cells that are further along in the process and tend to become cells just of a particular germ layer. And what's been very popular is the use of a type of stem cell called mesenchymal. That's a bit of a mouthful of a word, of course.
Mesenchymal.
Mhm. And those are cells that are of the mesodermal layer, and they particularly like to become bone and cartilage and tendons and those kind of structures, or muscle. And they're also derived from fat in terms of popular uses. They can also be derived from bone marrow. Uh, and more popularly, because it's a lot easier to harvest cells from a little incision to take some fat, as opposed to getting all the way through a bone into the bone marrow, that a lot of treatments have been done with so-called mesenchymal stem cells derived from fat. And there's a number of utilities, but also limitations to that type of cell. The main benefit is that this type of cell is really designed or geared to become cartilage, bone, and muscle. So if someone has a joint problem, for example, like they've had cartilage erosion in their knee, and that's causing symptoms or problems, then stem cells from fat can be injected into the knee, and that can assist to regenerate cartilage to improve the structure and function and relieve symptoms in that joint. The limitation of these cells is that they age. And
Mm.
it's shown, for example, that mesenchymal stem cells from fat work really well in a 20-year-old, but tend to work relatively poorly in a 70-year-old. So the older a person gets, the less potent and less useful those cells tend to become. And there's another big limitation that's relevant to our work, which is that these cells are relatively large. And I'll speak on cellular scales, which is in microns. So a typical mesenchymal stem cell, or MSC is the abbreviation, they're roughly 12 to 30 microns in diameter, which is small, but it's significant with respect to the size of structures in the body. And the main structure of concern is the little capillaries in the lung, which are about 6 microns. So if the goal was, say, to improve an internal organ, say the heart, for example, if you injected those cells IV, it's not easy to get a 12 micron ball through a 6 micron tube. It's just physics. So the vast majority, nearly all of those cells, will literally get stuck in the lung. Now, there still is a use. They will make growth and regeneration factors. So it's like a little miniature manufacturing plant that's producing chemistry that may help the body regenerate. But in terms of those cells actually getting into the target organ, very few of those would actually make it there. Now, the work that we do gets around those issues. So the innovation that we've had the privilege of participating in is that through the work of some very brilliant and pioneering colleagues, a type of stem cell has been discovered called, for abbreviation purposes, a V cell. You could call it a V for victory cell. The full
Great way to remember it.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Victory. Give me a V.
Exactly. And the full technical phrase is VSEL, or very small embryonic-like stem cell. And they're called embryonic-like because they're incredibly powerful, almost like embryonic stem cells, except they're past embryonic. So it's been shown that they don't form those cantaloupe-sized hairballs. They don't form teratomas anymore. And they won't create a whole new person either, so they don't have that ethical concern about them.
Mm.
However, they are capable, they're pluripotent, of becoming any of the types of cells in the body.
Interesting.
The
Yeah.
other thing that's really useful about them, the VS part, is that they are very small. And they really are very small. In terms of size, they're roughly 1 to 4 microns. And
Hold on now, for all of us listeners and for myself and all the listeners, give us a picture, if you will, of what exactly that size means.
mhm. So a micron technically is 1/1,000,000th of a meter.
Goodness me.
So if you take 1,000 of those, 1,000 microns is 1 millimeter.
Mm.
And I think we have a sense of what 1 millimeter is, and 25.4 millimeters is 1 inch.
Wow. Okay. So we have the picture now. All right.
Right? So if you took a ruler and divided 1 inch into 25 parts, and then took 1,000th of that, that would be 1 micron.
Hmm. Well, I wouldn't certainly be able to see that. I can barely see right now without my reading glasses. That puts it in perspective for me. Great.
So that gives an idea of the scale.
Mhm.
And at 1 to 4 microns, these cells are small enough to easily pass through the little capillaries in the lung that are 6 microns.
Yes.
The most remarkable feature of these cells, if you want to call it like the divine gift
Mhm.
or the benevolence of source, whatever you want to call it, for unknown reasons, for mysterious reasons, at or around the time that we're born, these cells go into hibernation. And why that's important is that unlike all the other types of stem cells that are uh, past the embryonic stage, this type of stem cell, because it's asleep and it's not dividing, it's also not aging. So there are DNA aging clocks that you've perhaps talked about on previous shows. One of them is called telomeres. It's the typical structure at the ends of the chromosomes. And the telomere story is that when we're born, the telomeres are very long. And each time the cells divide, the telomeres get shorter and shorter. And when they're reduced by about 50% from the time we're born, the cells stop dividing. And this is the main thing that limits a human lifespan. The cells stop dividing and go into senescence and no longer regenerate themselves and replace tissue, and organs degenerate, and that that's why we have a lifespan. What is unique about this type of cell,
A physical lifespan.
right, the physical lifespan,
Yes.
that because they go into hibernation, because they're not dividing, that they circulate literally asleep for a person's entire lifetime. And because they're asleep, the telomeres remain at newborn level. The other DNA aging clock, which is called methylation, also remains at a newborn level. So whether someone is a baby or 1 year old or 5 or 50 or even 100 years old, these cells are basically newborn caliber stem cells that can become anything and everything in the body.
This is so promising and astounding, and it is divine. It's divine, right? Wow.
Wait, there's more.
I know there is. I'm inspired to be here the rest of my life.
This could be much longer with what we're doing, actually. So what we have had the good fortune to have stumbled upon in our work is that we've developed a method of only having to draw a person's blood. So it doesn't require making an incision and taking fat. It doesn't require putting a big needle with a strong arm through a bone and pulling up bone marrow. Literally just have to put in an IV and draw 6 to 8 or 10 tubes of blood. And not much more or much different than if you're just going to the lab and getting some blood tests. And just from blood, we've developed a method to separate, concentrate, and most importantly, to awaken these lifelong sleeping stem cells. And it's a very efficient process that we published last December in a peer-reviewed stem cell journal. And the significance of that is that once we have awakened those cells, we can now give those cells back intravenously. And because they go through the lung and because they're so small, they can distribute themselves throughout the body from head to toe, seeding every organ of the body with newborn caliber stem cells that are able to become the different types of cells of that organ and start resetting the aging clock, literally for those cells back to the newborn level.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Do they innately know where to set themselves, like throughout the body, head to toe? Is that a natural, innate process or happening in the body?
That's an excellent question.
Okay.
And the answer is, it's our best understanding that the cells will distribute in proportion to the blood flow of that tissue or organ. So if we literally did a bodily map and mapped, say, this part gets 5% of the blood flow and this part gets 10%, like the brain gets 25%, for example, that roughly that proportion of cells will go to that organ, all other factors being equal. And then if there's an inflammatory process anywhere in the body, even one that's so small that there are no physical symptoms, the cells will tend to be drawn to areas where there's inflammation. And then the other part of our discovery is that the laser we've invented, which is a whole new type of laser technology that creates a new type of waveform, unlike other lasers, that not only does this waveform allow us to awaken the dormant stem cells, it also allows us to pass a vibrational signal much deeply through the body than ordinary laser. The wavelength of laser that we use normally would only go about a quarter inch through the body. And we've developed a waveform that, based on the physics, part of that waveform would literally go all the way through the body from one side to the other. And our very earliest experiment showed that this new type of laser waveform, the way we configured for this purpose, is a strong attractor field for stem cells. The very first experiment we ever did had stem cells in a dish. We passed this beam through it, and one day later, we saw the cells lined up where the beam had been. And this effect was so strong, you could literally see that line of cells with the naked eye. It was that big.
Even my eyes.
Even your eyes, even without
Wow.
reading glasses.
Even with my reading glasses. Now, correct me if I'm mistaken. This is the key technology that you're talking about?
Right.
Like what? Yeah. Okay.
Right. As in QI or
This
quantum
is,
information.
yeah, this is just
technology.
amazing.
Right. So what that means is that in addition to the cells distributing just based on how much blood flow goes to that organ or tissue, and then there being an attractor field where cells will tend to be pulled more to where there's inflammation, we have an override signature. Wherever we direct that beam in the body creates a type of quantum attractor field, in essence, a fluctuation of potentials in the vacuum of space-time that is in resonance with the chemistry of the stem cells and attracts them to it. So we can increase the probability that this newborn stem cell, capable of becoming anything, goes to where we want it to go. So it increases the likelihood of distributing the proportion of cells to the part of the body that would have the greatest use for regeneration.
Yeah, which, when it comes to holistic healing, which would be the intention, right?
Right.
This is, this aligns like 1000% with any kind of Reiki, any kind of energy healing. This is super cool. Okay, so
there's more.
yeah, so continue, because I know, because this totally goes into how it expands our life, our health, our life longevity. So
What's very relevant, and I think is the promise that is starting to be realized of stem cells. And it has to do with a shift in thinking about what our potential is.
yes,
For some time, there has been an area labeled as anti-aging. And if aging is a process that we observe and experience, then it has been shown that certain lifestyle habits, diet, exercise, how and the way you eat, the way you think, whether you allow yourself to be stressed, how much sleep you get and the quality of your sleep, what types of supplements you take and how you take them, all of these factors in various ways have been shown at least to have the ability to slow down the aging process. Yet if you look at this as a process where wherever you're at, after a certain point in your biology, say roughly 25 is the age at which the epigenetic switches, the way genes are turned on and off in the body, is at its optimum. So different organs vary where they're at their peak and it's downhill from there. Whereas if we look at it in a general way, say 25 would be an ideal biological and genetic configuration age, that after that point, it's literally kind of downhill from there. And if you're slowing aging, well, that's cool because you may have more years of more function, but it still has kind of a defeatist attitude. It's like, well, it's all downhill from here, you're just kind of watching the slide.
that's honestly, that's not even funny, because that's the reality of 80% of the people that I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a different view, which I think is much more exciting. And I just had the privilege of being at an event in Boston with some Harvard luminaries in this area. And in particular, there's a Dr. Frank Church, who was the inventor of CRISPR. And he says he really doesn't care for the concept of anti-aging, because it's really just in this attitude of trying to slow down the inevitable. He's really into the idea of age reversal.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
very different idea to reverse age. It's not just this kind of being on a downhill slide and you're trying to claw your way back up the mountain or slow down how fast
Or
you're
slow it
falling.
down. Yes.
Right. It's actually going back up the mountain. It's actually reclaiming biological youth and function. And what's
Mhm.
relevant is our methodology, which sends these cells throughout the body and gives an augmentation where the person might have a particular utility in regeneration. And I'm not really able to reveal the exact details yet. Our method of awakening these newborn stem cells with the genetic clock that's literally set at a newborn level is that using advanced DNA tests of biologic age that look at approximately 900,000 epigenetic marker points on DNA and gives biologic age to 2 decimal places, our method has turned back the biologic clock more than any other method in history.
Of course it has. No doubt. I completely get it. And if I can just interject or add or just kind of move it around a little bit, how it aligns with a lot of my work is, uh, which is why I really truly resonate with this. And I understand that difference in concept and way of thinking is, if we really just shifted the mindset and instead of seeing the body as this process, rather seeing health as your omnipresent reality,
Mhm.
which is y- what exactly you are, perfect. It's a matter of just getting back to that,
Mhm.
by
Right.
shifting the mind, shifting the heart, connecting.
Right.
Yeah. With this work that you're doing, I mean, is tremendous. It's again, there's a big difference between slowing down or trying to, or even preventative,
Mhm.
because to your point, it's almost like going back up the mountain,
Mhm.
like you're becoming a salmon, right? You're swimming, right? You're swimming upstream.
Right, except to make it easier than what the salmon has to do with.
Exactly. Yeah. So tell us how you how will you make it easier for you, for me, for our listeners, uh, today, tomorrow, in the future? What does that look like?
Well, we keep improving our protocol,
Hmm.
so it gets better and better as we have more understanding and further enhance our process for uh, gathering, separating, awakening, and also stimulating the release of regeneration and rejuvenation factors from the cells. That we now have evolved a system that's already working quite well in terms of literally not just slowing aging, but reversing aging. Like
Right.
literally
Now,
turning back the clock
turning
to,
back the clock.
yeah.
I'm going to pause you here. I'm going to tell you why.
Mhm.
Um, because, and I'm kind of going, speaking of turning back the clock to all of our listeners and our viewers that are viewing live today, I'm going to pause this as crazy interesting as this is, because we're going to invite all of you all back to actually discuss this in detail on October 11th, I believe. Um, s- so I'm going to shift us, if we will, to exactly how this relates to starting with, or why is brain health so critical?
Mhm. Sure. The focus of our group is really beyond just longevity. I'd say our real ideal is the broader concept of the human potential. And the brain, of course, is an important part of it. And there are those who think that consciousness and what we know is beyond even just the physical brain, that the
Yes.
brain may simply be a type of receptor organ that allows us to have access to much more information that could be coded just in the circuits in the physical brain. That's a more advanced concept and
Mhm.
controversial. That even if we just look at the physical brain itself, that there are ways to have a brain that works a lot better, that creates better, thinks better, functions better, solves problems better, and is simply more aware. And that our whole program really is multidimensional. So there is the aspect of stem cells, for example, where these newborn stem cells are small enough to cross the blood brain barrier and create new nerves, new neurons, and new connections. So, this idea that you're only born with so many nerves, and that just kind of like these other ideas, and you have less and less as you go, and things slip, and use some of those nerves that had memories, and those are gone forever. That that whole process can be altered. And whereas stem cells is one part of the equation, there is a lot that has to do with the focus and function of the mind itself. So the attitudes and the beliefs and shifting the programs we have about who we are, what we're capable of, that's also a large part of this bigger picture of answering the question, well, who are we really? What are we capable of? What can we really become? And
Yes.
I think, for example, we're really fascinated with so-called superhero movies. Like, I think one of the
Yes.
all-time best grossing movies was the recent Avengers movie with, all the various superheroes that had one type of ultra capability or another.
Hmm.
And I believe that many of us have this sense that, we really should be capable of that. Like, and we see it on the screen and say, well, that's Hollywood and that's special effects, yet it seems like we should be able to do that. And even by virtue of seeing it, it makes it even more possible that someday we could do those sorts of things.
Absolutely. If someone can create it and produce that in film, certainly we can create that in reality.
And I believe that there's a receptivity to and an interest in those kinds of movies because there's this kind of longing or feeling in ourselves that we really have a lot of untapped ability, that we can do and be a whole lot more.
Yeah,
That,
like it revs you up when you're watching something like that, right? And you get
right,
like all excited.
right,
Things are flying around the screen. It's true.
right. So there are methodologies that in part are about the physical brain. So stem cells, especially as we've had the privilege of developing them, have a capability of literally regenerating the brain and spinal cord. Then there are nutritional formulas, and we also have a nutraceutical company that has a variety from some of which are very good at improving the function of the brain.
Yeah. I was just going to actually, I was just going to just mention, I've been using the nutraceuticals, the gematria dietary supplements, and not only endorse them, but, now as you may or may not know, I'm offering them as part of my wellness programming as a holistic healer. And I cannot say enough about the benefits. So tell our listeners how brain health support supplements play a key role in not just in healing and maintaining during day to day, but also during these current times with COVID-19.
Mhm. Right. So, for example, on the brain function story, our very first formula was focused on the brain. It's called Gemaminos.
Mhm.
And we did a test called a quantitative EEG, also known as a brain map, which looks at the power output of the brain in the different brainwave frequencies. And in particular, we looked at the alpha band, which is the so-called peak performance band, the band of relaxation with enhanced awareness when the athletes are in the zone. And we did a baseline test where the person was first thing in the morning without coffee, and then looked at giving that person the formula itself, and it was quite good. We saw a roughly 35% increase in the physical power output of the brain. So literally,
Without the caffeine, you said,
right,
right? Without
right,
coffee,
without
without
caffeine,
caffeine.
right. And so that literally was 35% more brain power. However, the formula without further enhancement also caused many areas of lack of coherence in the brain. So the brain had more energy, but it was kind of scattered, like drinking too much coffee. What was interesting is after we used our laser process to enhance in a sense, the coherence and activity of those nutrients, instead of a roughly 35% increase in power, we saw on the order of a 75% increase in power. So significantly more brain power, and that was statistically significant. We also saw clearance of all the areas of lack of coherence, even the baseline lack of coherence. So we created an ideally coherent brain, like someone Zen meditating for 20 years, while also increasing literally the physical power output of the brain even more significantly.
Astounding.
So, so we would say you could either You do Zen meditation for 20 years or take 2 of these capsules and wait 45 minutes.
I plan on doing both. I've been doing I've been doing both. It's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So there is biochemistry that's involved, and there are ways that nutrients can be used to enhance pretty much every aspect of human biology and physiology.
Mhm.
Like you have a focus on the brain and its function and capabilities. So a number of our formulas are designed to enhance brain chemistry in various ways. And then different types of biochemical formulations are related to other systems of the body. We're simply just giving the body the material it needs to build itself well and to regenerate itself well.
Right.
And then there is the psycho-emotional side, and some people have conflicts, either theirs or from their ancestors, that they need to clear if they want to be able to function at their highest potential. That's another part of the equation. And then there's using the mind in various ways with practices of different styles of meditation. So physical exercise that entrain the body, mind, and being in certain ways. There are yoga techniques, which in a sense, uh, people often think of yoga as doing postures in a way to strengthen muscles or increase flexibility. Yet at the deepest root, going back to Patanjali 5,000 years ago, the idea was that in a particular configuration of the body is an antenna to receive certain types of universal information.
Yes. It'll it's all one big circle.
Of course it is. Body,
What
mind, and
can I
being.
say?
As you
No,
improve the one,
yeah.
improve the
Be
other.
be because even integrating, let's say, these, um, brain health support or any kind of health support supplements, with this laser technology, and integrating that with something like if I'm working with someone with some kind of DNA decoding or any kind of, programming um, with these new meditations that I've been doing. Or if someone chooses yoga or whatever,
Mhm,
Kung whatever it is masterful in that optimal health,
mhm.
uh, body, mind, and spirit for sure, truly. Yeah. Oh, well, I've got to bring this up. We've got to get a little controversial. Uh, the COVID-19 vaccines. Honestly, uh, to all my listeners, I would have hoped that a few months back, that we wouldn't be really even bringing up COVID-19 anymore. I would have hoped that it would be something more of a historical conversation, but it's not history yet. So I need to ask, the COVID-19 vaccines, why are they damaging to the body? And can these brain health support supplements or any of the other laser supplements for our health support help restore any potential damage that has been done
Mm.
because of the vaccines or because of maybe having COVID?
Well, I have to be really careful here.
Yeah, we're
And
being very careful. Yeah, so just, I mean, you could give a very vanilla answer.
privately, I can tell you
Well,
what
yeah, but so let's say like, why might they be damaging?
what I can
Why? What is suggested or not?
what I can say is that in our clinic, we've already used our methods to assist those that have had vaccine-related complications to improve the biology from those complications. So I think it's fair to say that,
Taking their blood, like that, how you explained earlier and whatnot, right?
right, because the sleeping cells were asleep during whatever the reactions were that caused the vaccine complications. And because of that, they're capable of literally restoring the body to a state of health before the insult occurred.
Mm, that's promising.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think given the whole very unusual context of what's happening with it, uh, it's probably best to say that like any vaccine, complications can occur
Yeah.
of varying degrees of severity, and we have methods that appear to be beneficial to restore the body to an improved condition if they've had such complications.
Yeah. And let's take the virus out of the picture. Let's take all vaccinations out of the picture. Let's take the virus out of the picture.
Mhm.
And let's just talk about look, every single person in general that is listening in today and will be listening in tomorrow and the day after and the day after that is everyone comes with some kind of ailment, right? Someone, everyone brings something to the table that they have, maybe suffered for a long time with. It seems to me that from what you're telling us, even from 20 minutes ago, is that the potential is so great because we have those dormant cells, right? And to awaken them is gives us huge potential to really overcome, or should I say, to really just go beyond this current situation. Pardon the pun. See, that's the name of the podcast. But right? Am I right? Or
Well, we believe with our existing methodology, especially when you add other technologies that have been shown to have age reversal effects,
Mhm.
that we're looking at minimally doubling the human lifespan. Like
This is
ever.
so great. I'm really, if this is not one inspiring, intellectual, insightful, factual conversation, when I was inviting people here for today, I'm saying this is just not a thoughtful conversation. Like if you want a thoughtful conversation, this is not this conversation. So I'm super excited about what you're telling us. Yeah, it's an actual reversal.
Right.
Mm,
Yeah, literally turning back the aging clock measurably, verifiably at the DNA level.
mm, wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, uh, w- w- what proof, if you can tell our listeners, what proof do you have in preventing these neurodegenerative disorders, or um, I don't like to call it a disease, but just neuro degenerative happenings in the body or the mind?
That's a pretty broad question.
It is. Okay. How might I ask that differently to narrow it or down to something very, very specific as far as I know because there's so many neuro degenerative uh mm, diseases that we see, and but what about just preventing our mind from getting to that state of um absence?
Well, a discussion of any scenario really is multi-level,
Hmm.
and it's really body, mind, and being. And perhaps before we end this discussion, I can give people a couple of URLs that represent different aspects of this, whether it's the nutritional biochemical, whether it's the psycho-emotional, whether it's the stem cell side with, not just anti-aging, but actual age reversal. So I would like to give people the ability to have access to the information.
Hmm. Great.
For for something that's really insightful, fun, and I believe somewhat provocative, the neurodegenerative conditions from the psychoemotional standpoint are other than what you think.
Yes.
That
Because.
while our biology and our brains work in certain ways, and we can look at the effects of that, we can even look at it chemically. Like,
Mhm,
say, someone who has severe memory loss, we can say that there is an accumulation of certain types of disordered proteins, and that accumulation of proteins is impairing the function of the nerves, so memory can't be stored.
mhm,
That's what's happening at the physical biochemical level. Yet the root of it is an unresolved emotional conflict.
mhm.
So,
Agreed. Yeah.
and because you mentioned COVID, I'm gonna actually lead with the conflict of COVID, and then I'll give you the
What?
conflict for
Oh.
memory loss.
Okay. Yes.
And this you might find interesting. So COVID is a global pandemic, and if it's something that affects so many people across the board, the type of conflict would logically be something that is pretty common. That a lot of people would have to have this particular kind of conflict if they're going to express a particular condition related to an unresolved conflict of that sort.
I have my suspicions.
Want to guess at the conflict?
My my
Good guess.
guess?
Mhm.
A global conflict, what everyone
Yep.
globally
Yep.
experiences?
Yep.
Fear.
It's not that. That's too broad.
Ah, it's too broad.
Psycho-emotional medicine is laser precise.
Oh,
So, so,
interesting.
so for example, uh, Steve Jobs, who is
Yeah.
responsible for having these little supercomputers we
Mhm.
carry around with us,
Yeah.
at least the iPhone version,
Uh-huh.
he died of a rare type of pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
So there's a common type of cancer, which is adenocarcinoma of the head of the pancreas, but he had a rare cancer, which I believe was a glucagonoma of the tail of the pancreas. And in psycho-emotional medicine, the conflict for cancer of the tail of the pancreas is very specific. And this gives an idea of how specific. The conflict is not having the name of the father. And Steve Jobs was adopted. He never got over that conflict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And had he processed that conflict, he may not have succumbed to that condition.
So if we talk about a global conflict,
Hmm.
and some listeners today may hear this as esoteric, but whether people, however you view it, doesn't really stop it from happening and does not stop it from being true. And all of my followers, they know that I just put it out there. But really, what then, to your point, really what's a global conflict is really forgetting who or where we came from.
Okay. Well, you're really close to it. So
Like the one mind, creator, love, God, whatever you want to call it. That's the missing piece. It's almost like remembering, going back to remembering that.
Mhm. Well, you're really
Am I
stating it.
warm?
You're you're hot. You're smoking hot. You're stating it in a somewhat different way. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
we have the privilege of working with some of the leading pioneers in this area that teach their programs. We bring them in to provide their trainings.
Yeah.
And one of the expressions of the conflict is this is the coronavirus conflict is I can't recognize who the enemy is.
Yeah. Yes.
And corona, of course, means crown. The other way of stating it is I don't know who's wearing the crown.
Yeah. Because you don't know that you come from. It's almost circles back to when you're talking about the cells dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing. You think about that one mind or love or God. I look at it as God or creator, dividing and dividing and dividing into all those little, little teeny tiny pieces that you described earlier. It's the same concept.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And forgetting that we come from that.
It's another side of that same coin.
Yeah. And if we all remembered that, yeah, I strongly believe that there would really be no hate.
Mhm.
It's that simple, and yet it's that complicated. Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then, then that would kind of abolish many viruses,
Right.
sickness, dis-ease. Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is a logical extension. Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of the work that I do with healing also involves a lot of different tones and gongs and with my guided meditations. Tell our listeners about your work with the pineal tones.
I would love
We're
to.
going to come back in the third episode, by the way, everyone, and he's going to we're going to have an experience with that. But just give us a little touch on it as it relates to healing.
Sure. And before I do that, I want to answer your other question, which was, what is the conflict with severe memory loss?
Yes. Okay. Great.
Whichever condition name you
Yeah.
put on. Do you want to guess?
Yes. Oh, you want me to guess?
Yeah, I'll give you one shot at
Well, the
them.
conflict to memory loss, I think, is really like you coming back into remembering. So even if people think that you're going cuckoo, you're probably getting closer and closer to consciousness than you think.
Well, the flavor of it, you're on the right track. The conflict is two or more brutal separations.
Ah, wow. In this human life, in this human
Right.
experience.
So it could be a spouse, a loved one, a lover, a partner, a pet, a child,
Hmm.
but it's experienced and lived as a brutal separation. It little becomes easier to forget than have the pain of remembering.
Hmm. Yeah. And because of that, does that also bring disease or can it?
What's that?
The choice to forget or push or
Well,
suppress.
well, what I'm saying is that
That's
that's
how you have the memory loss.
that's how the
Um,
brain protects itself.
got you. Mm,
Rather than being caught in a circuit of sadness and grief over the loss, the
hmm.
brain walls it off in such a way that the protective mechanism is simply to forget.
Hmm.
So unless the pain and emotion of that experience, unless the core of that is gotten to and expressed and released, then there are the various uh, medical therapeutic and nutritional metabolic and other approaches that may allow the brain physiologically to function better. Yet if you don't get to the core of the emotional stress, it won't be possible to have the best result.
Correct. I mean, I had to do that within my own life, which is what makes me a master at helping coaching other people and, at healing for anything.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's
Interesting.
that's an
Yeah.
answer to that to the question about neurodegenerative diseases. And there are different flavors of those conditions. They have different biochemistry, physiology, different ways we might approach it with supporting it
Mhm.
with stem cells. Uh, and there are different hues and flavors of the conflicts depending upon the conditions as well. So
Right.
it's a whole system of understanding.
Yeah, I should have actually guessed that better. It's interesting because, and that is the common thread. Different people that I've worked with, like even like someone that maybe came from the Holocaust, and had gone into like, Alzheimer's at a very, very young age, that things, I'm talking about people that really have lived through some really traumatic experiences and
Right.
separation and loss, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's say someone has come into this healing time in their life and they have gone to the root, or they believe they have gone to the root, or they're on their way to the root of healing. Where might for me, I do a lot of, like I said, a lot of tones, a lot of gongs, a lot of chimes, and with guided meditation for healing. So how does the I've heard your pineal tones with the Lemurian choir,
Mhm.
and there's such a oneness about it. Is that what makes it so like, "Woah," like your whole body just kind of shakes in honest? What is it about the pineal tones that brings us all together as one?
Mm, what a wonderful question. Well, the pineal tone story, that could be its whole own whole own
Yeah,
program.
and it will be. Just a reminder, you guys, we're coming on in for the pineal tones as well as our third episode.
There is quite a lot to it,
Mhm,
and the fundamental understanding, whether working with light technology or sound technology,
mhm,
is that everything in the universe vibrates. And whether it's every molecule in a cell or a cell structure itself or any physical object, just based on physics or something that's known as the natural resonance, the way that thing will vibrate if you give it a stimulus that sets it into vibration. And the pineal tones are a set of quantum sounds, patterns, and vibrations that have a particular focus of creating expanded states of awareness. The lore around them is that the tones that I'm sharing go back to a civilization that's very ancient, one known as Lemuria, that is kind of lost in the antiquity of time. There aren't artifacts from that era. And that civilization was a peaceful one that for thousands of years never had a war. And healing was done with basically intention and sound. And the pineal tones were a different type of process that was in part about rejuvenating the body, turning back the aging clock. People had much longer lifespans just using the tones. And there are other technologies for rejuvenation as well that I was, at least according to my medical intuitive or clairvoyant friends, that suggest I was part of that process. That the pineal tones in particular are designed to create enhanced states of awareness. So in part, it's about rejuvenation, regeneration. In part, it's about creating balance in the body. Even more than that, it's about literally opening channels of awareness to have much higher perception, to be able to tune into a deeper level and layer of reality. The first of these Lemurian choir events was on the date of the end of the Mayan calendar, December 21st, 2012, where we gathered over 900 singers and recreated, as we understood, a Lemurian choir for the first time in 26,000 years. And that was really profound. Not only did people experience moving through dimensions into other worlds and realities by virtue of being that you can imagine like uh, over 900 people singing in a room with a high intention, singing a complexity of tones, where in general, two large groups, one group sings one pattern, one group sings another, a fundamental and harmonic choir, which creates very complex overtones and harmonics. So it's an immense sound bath, as it were. And there are many profound experiences that included, balancing things in people's biology as well. So that uh, way of getting together for a personal experience and something that I believe was creating a very positive healing vibration for the planet gave rise to doing further choirs with uh, different assignments, you would say, that I received for what the focus was. And what we talked about and what we're going to share with your listeners is the finale of the most recent choir, which was in the sacred Rila Mountains of Bulgaria. And my assignment for that choir was to remember or tune into the song a civilization sings when they go from duality consciousness to unity consciousness. So,
Nice.
so imagine if instead of a planet with fear and controversy and political factions and jockeying for who gets to say what reality is, if you literally had a unity consciousness, a a general love state where everyone was cooperating with everyone and working for everyone to achieve their highest potential, a unity consciousness state, well, this particular set of tones and tonal patterns is the pattern that is created when that unity consciousness is achieved. So the purpose of even hearing this is to tune into that state, and ideally singing along with it is building the vibration of bringing that future. There are many potentials for our planet, of course. One potential is that we can achieve, a peaceful, enlightened planet.
Yes.
So imagine that potential if more and more people sang the vibrations of a unity field consciousness planet. It's like a type of vibrational time machine, literally bringing the vibrational reality of the future into the present. And the more people that did it, and the more often they did it, it would literally be shortening the timeline between here and that very positive reality.
That answers perfectly about the oneness that even I sense and I felt when I listened for the first time. I actually I do have some people on live. I have someone that's asking a question. He is a follower of mine. He's from Overland, Kansas. If I may ask you what he's asking, it says Gary Mihalik. He's asking, my daughter is very sick in the hospital as we speak with bipolar disease. This is the fifth time she has been admitted this year. She has lost most all of reality. Since we are addressing issues of the brain, any comments that would be helpful? Thanks.
Mhm. From the nutritional metabolic standpoint, what's been particularly helpful for bipolar has been large quantities of EPA and DHA, the long chain omega-3 essential fatty acids. In a healthy brain, roughly 50% of the lipid is the molecule known as DHA, which is the omega-3 that has 6 double bonds. So our healthy brain needs a lot of that. And large doses, like typically 2 to 3 grams per day or more, have been shown to be beneficial for balancing that condition. There are also, in the realm of psycho-emotional medicine, a web of conflicts related to that condition. So we talked about a singular conflict, for example, 2 or more brutal separations being related to the biology of memory loss, that there is a particular web of conflicts related to bipolar disorder. And what I could do privately, after our discussion today,
Yes.
I could send you our most gifted, pioneering practitioner who would have the art of, if his daughter were willing, to literally ask a series of questions that might assist to disentangle the web of conflicts related to the brain expressing itself that way.
Got you. Okay. So Gary, reach out. Gary, you reach out all the time to me anyway. So he will provide something for you to look into that. Thank you. I'm going to shift a little bit. This whole journey that you went on, and this whole vision that you when you made this shift into more of energy, right, and fused that together and had it all make sense together as it is intended with medicine. I when did you when did you know I hate to use that word, it's so trending, right? Like, oh, when did you know your purpose? I know that seems so silly, but I guess, you know what I mean. But I guess more to the point is like when did you feel that shift, or Or did you not feel a shift? Like, when did that spiritual journey or pull, when did that manifest for you in your life?
Very good question. I mean, it probably started even when I was a teenager with an interest in yoga and Eastern philosophy. It became more intense when I began my medical training, when for a decade I actually was a practicing Sufi ascetic, uh, with a group that had uh, a high level being that was sharing information with us. And upon finishing my training, I then moved to California to study with the medical intuitive to learn the energy medicine side of things. And part of our training involved doing a meditation process, meditation class in particular,
Mhm.
where we did a Kundalini meditation, not only
Ah, Kundalini.
to raise Kundalini from the base of the spine to the crown, but then to actually run different colors, the rainbow colors, starting with red and going up the spectrum to violet. When I got to violet, I actually felt like Jodie Foster in Contact when she went through the wormhole and came to a new dimension. And there I
Mm.
came to the portal with two big guards. I gave a big message about being responsible for the information, literally showing people being decapitated if they were disrespectful of the information. They, made the point very clear. And when I went through the gateway, what I experienced was seeing a room filled with DNA. Like you taking the DNA in the nucleus of a cell and literally blew it up so many times it would fill a whole room. And I experienced a communication, which was that the understanding of science about DNA is correct but incomplete. DNA is, in fact, a massively long informational molecule that contains a full encyclopedia of information about how to build a body, particularly how to make all the structural and functional proteins that make it work. But it's not how it's all coordinated. That there's another aspect, which is electromagnetic, that in the DNA in a cell, it's not just a double helix, the DNA supercoils. So you have coils within coils within coils. In an environment where there are moving charges, when you have coils and charges, you create electromagnetic fields. Like that's how a radio works. So in a sense, DNA is like little radio coils that are constantly communicating with each other. And the core information was that if you understand the electromagnetic emanations well enough of cells in sickness and health, that you would literally be able to learn how to instruct, and that was the phrase instruct, an
Yeah.
old cell to become young or a sick cell to become well.
Mm,
So that was the core
that's
journey for me.
beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. I, in an odd way, but maybe not. Maybe not. It's similar to me when I do energy work with someone that's ill. Usually, typically, when I do energy, I do have I have a coil vision around, but it's usually going clockwise. But if it's
Sure.
someone that we need to discreate,
Right.
then my coil goes counterclockwise, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
And so I had to share that because it kind of aligns with, it's of course two different subjects, but not really. Right. Healing is healing, energy is energy, light is light. Right.
It's about time for creation and time reversed to dissolve it. And then
Exactly.
you create something new. That's sort of the core
Yeah,
point.
exactly. I have to ask you, Dr. Todd, uh, I have the areas in my life that I don't bend. What areas in your life do you not bend with? What do you personally require in your day to day life without compromise? I had to get personal, right?
That's a great question. Because there are, of course, between having a clinic and creating supplements and doing mind body medicine, I'm pretty busy.
Oh, I imagine you are. I imagine you are.
So there are a lot of, how you say, responsibilities and things to attend to. And yet, despite that, I'd say it's probably about 2 hours a day total that I'm doing practices of various sorts. I mean,
What kind?
part of it is physical exercise.
Good.
So, for example, 10,000 steps a day, 222 push ups a day, and 222 triceps thingies a day to balance that. And I do this machine called the All Core, which has a tagline of 6 weeks to a six-pack. So I've kind of got that going now. Uh, I
Is it working?
I
What
I
week are
almost
you
want to
on?
show you. I actually currently have created the record. Yesterday was my 437th straight day in a row of doing the All Core.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then in terms,
Movement is so important. Overloading your muscles, all of that.
yeah.
Good.
Then in terms of the more mind-body practices, I'm working with a grandmaster.
Hmm.
And this is a pretty cool story. His name is Dr. Barry Margulin. He was a UCLA gastroenterologist, a very high-level academic and developer of endoscopic techniques for the gastrointestinal tract, who himself had his own vision of people not having to be sick in the first place, and went around the world and ultimately found true masters in the mountains of China.
I
And
love
that
it.
and that they actually do the stuff, you see that movie like Crouching Tiger, that they're actually people that do that stuff. And he met the masters that know how to do it and can teach how to do it. And most of the people in training don't make it all the way through, and some don't even survive it because it's at that level of rigor. And he became the first non-Chinese person in 5,000 years. And as I understand it, he'd be the only one of 9 grandmasters in the world, and the only one not in China, that has been allowed for the first time in 5,000 years, going back to Lao Tzu, that the information has been allowed to leave China.
Wow.
So,
He's in like that lineage lineup.
right.
Goodness.
So
Wow.
this method is incredibly powerful. And so every day there's a program. And what's really cool is that between himself personally, he's literally transmitting energy to everybody who's doing this. So it's basically source energy that you can use to create or do anything. And so each day there are a couple of meditations to do. I'm doing a series of 15 different sets of physical exercises that, because it's not just the root of Chinese medicine, it's also the root of martial arts. So
Mm.
it's a type of martial arts body mind training. And then what's interesting is every day starts with writing goals for 5 minutes. So you have all this energy, you have to do something with it, you have to direct it somewhere.
Absolutely.
And then equally
Beautiful.
important is for at least 5 minutes a day, writing down all your wins and realizations and reverences or synchronicities. So part of retraining your whole nervous system and psyche into literally being in the energy and positively creating in all 8 areas of your life all the time without any perceived limitation is noting when you have a win, noting when you've had it, no matter how small. It can be abundance when you see a dime on the sidewalk and pick it up. It's a small win, but it's a win. It's like in the positive direction. You found a parking spot, it's a win. You
Mhm.
just won a major prize, it's a win. You just got a big contract, it's a win. Or a synchronicity, like you think of a person and they call you, or you talk about a particular theme in your conversation and you read a book and the same theme is there. So you also
Mm.
know when synchronicities have happened because there's a way that we're creating them. And then there's also moments of reverential awe where you just see something that's so beautiful and inspiring. It just makes it may bring you to tears, because not because you're sad, but just because it's so beautiful, it moves you with awe. So you also write down uh, all of those types of experiences as comprehensively as you can. It literally creates new pathways in the brain that are about becoming more and more conscious creator and building circuits where you create the expectation of positive outcomes.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's so interesting because there must be so many different like things that have spewed out or branched out from that in different methodologies, because somewhere along the lines I do something similar and teach something similar. I add gratitude in the writings as well.
Mhm.
Even in some people's lives, maybe when they don't feel that they could be grateful for anything, and like you can always find one condition, one area in a condition that, you
Mhm.
can find gratitude for, right?
You
So
had a
let's
good
start
cookie.
let's start with your breath. Yeah, let's start with
Right,
breath,
right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, start with your
right.
eyes opening. Let's start with all of it. I could think of a million things before you even get your rear end out of bed,
Right, right,
right?
right. That's
What
true.
makes you tick? What is the one thing that turns that dimmer switch in you way up?
It's probably a general answer. I mean, even though we're doing, say, advanced stem cell work and having really amazing results with age reversal.
Mhm.
And I mean, that alone could certainly be a full life path, uh,
Mhm.
and be something to be very grateful to be involved with and participate in. And the bigger picture really is the human potential. I mean, what
Yeah.
excites me is the idea of um, really tuning into what we're capable of, like releasing the limitations in all vectors, in all directions. You know, to what degree can we live? Can we love? Can we experience? Can we create? Uh,
Yeah.
what objects of beauty, music of beauty, uh, uh, philosophy that is inspiring. What if we put all of our best abilities together? What are we capable of creating, and what is the true depth of our ability? So what's exciting to me is, what is it that can expand, the depth and breadth of our potential?
Mm. Do you have a music of choice? I know that when I cook, I like a certain type of music. I know that at certain times of the day, I like just complete silence, nothing, zero. I don't
Mhm.
typically listen to music when I drive. Like I have my things. What kind of uh, what sort of music is your go-to?
Well, I've begun beyond the choirs because I've composed and produced, I think it's 9 choral symphonies thus far. I've begun composing for instruments as well. So recently, after working with the Grand Master, I composed my first piano piece, and even more
Yes, you
recently.
sent me that piece.
Mhm.
It is beautiful.
Yeah,
It really seriously, it really helps it helps me expand. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. And you put a whole you did a whole there was a compilation. You
well,
composed that with the piano, but then you sent me the full piece with everything in there. It was just
the full symphony. Right,
full symphony.
right. And the story
Amazing.
there is that 3 days after my first energy initiation with the Grand Master, I woke at the exact minute time of my birth, which is 5:33 a.m., hearing the symphony piece by piece. So I heard a whole vocal track, then I heard the complete piano track, then I heard the complete violin track and the complete flute track. And so the full composition of the symphony with all the instruments and vocals literally came complete and entire after that experience with the Grand Master.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's beautiful. Yeah. Are you working on another piece now? Or will you be?
I'm working on finishing that one. I'm going to add a choral
You're gonna
element
edit.
as well. Yeah,
You
to
are.
be really complete.
That's so great. This has okay, rock concert, yes or no? Opera, yes or no?
Uh, Opera, yes. Classical concert music, yes. A lot of rock is not that beneficial. I mean, if you look
Yeah,
at
I
my
don't yeah,
photo
I know.
work.
I my 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 choice of music in my home is very some people would say, "Oh, it sounds like a spa in here," or I'm falling asleep. But that I resonate, yeah, with that. Even just I could have gongs going. I could have things going on, and I wake up in the morning with that in my head without anything on.
Mhm,
So that's just kind of always going on in here. But I was curious, I mean, the last time, but I do choose like I went to the opera in New York once. Imagine, and I'm a New Yorker.
mhm,
Um, and I went to the Met, and it was beautiful. I
mhm,
tend to like no vocals though, so I gravitate toward sounds.
mhm. Right.
I saw dolphins, a bunch of dolphins the other day at the beach.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Lovely. Yeah.
about 8 or 9 of them,
Right.
and all I could do was just stare and was trying to tap in. Can I hear? Can I hear them? I wasn't in the water. I was outside of my feet were in the water. But it was the day, right? It was the afternoon before the huge storm over here,
Mm.
the like tornado watch that we had.
Mhm.
And that night was crazy. And I wondered, did the dolphins know? Were they swimming? They were circling around.
Mhm.
It's just so there's that connection with just sound and waves, and like you said, everything vibrates, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and
This
for my preferences, if I'm actually just listening for fun, I gravitate to classical and Latin music, and I do like some pop music as well.
mhm. Mhm. So, well, yeah. So listeners might want to know or might not know that you were a dancer like myself. You were a professional dancer, right? You
Right?
did uh um not
Ballroom.
classical,
Ballroom.
ballroom dancing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was
Uh,
classical. You did ballroom. So you
now
must know all of that, the cha-cha, the rumba and the salsa and uh just ballroom, right?
I know it, and I'm a certified professional instructor since before
That's
my senior year
great.
of high school. Yeah.
That's great. All night long for dancing. Foxtrot Casanova, watch my feet take over. That's so great.
Yeah, I grew up with it. My dad owned dance school, so I had my first lesson when I was 7. So
That is so great. It's so funny how you come full circle, and like so many of us have experienced the same backgrounds, and yet when we expand into, as we get older, we expand, and life just takes us in different areas. As far as helping others expand, is super, super amazing. This has been a wealth of knowledge and information. And I do want to be considerate of your time and our listeners' time. We cannot slow down the hands of the clock. However, we can reverse age as we spoke about, right? And so we know we have the proof already. We are actually inviting you listeners and your friends all back for our second series together right here with myself and Dr. Todd Ovokaitys on Beyond the Current Situation, as Dr. Todd will really show you how to turn back the hands of time and stay youthful. So mark your calendars. I'm pretty sure we set that for Monday, October 11th at the same time, same bat station, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you again, Dr. Todd, for expanding our knowledge today on brain health. And to all of our listeners, listen up. Dr. Todd has been generous enough to provide you with a gift. It is a free download of the Pineal Tones victory song that we mentioned, that was recorded in Ryla Mountain, I believe it was, Dr. Todd. Yeah, so head on over to my podcast. Once this live is over, I will swing this over into the podcast that will be available indefinitely. So you want to head over to my podcast, Beyond the Current Situation, and subscribe. And you'll click on the link that I provide in the notes to this episode, and to download your gift from Dr. Todd, which was, thank you so much for your generosity, Dr. Todd. And thank you so much for being here. Is there anything maybe in closing that you would like to share with our listeners?
probably more than anything, to really embrace that whatever you thought might have been limitations may not be real. That almost anything that you can dream of is possible. And it's really a function of developing a type of life discipline and perspective and kind of getting through whatever the perceived limitations were of your upbringing or your ancestors, that we're in a realm where almost anything is possible, no matter what you see in the media, especially. And to be encouraged that whatever that dream is, it's really is possible.
There you go. You heard it here from Dr. Todd Ovokaitys. I couldn't agree more. If you liked this episode, please give it 5 stars, subscribe, share it with a friend, and see you next time on Beyond the Current Situation.